I would like to take the opportunity here to introduce Major General Gary Medvici. He is a reserved Army general, and he's going to give us a presentation. He's been very involved going back and forth with Korea. And also, when he's finished, I'd like to introduce a couple other friends in the audience. General Medvici.
Well, thanks for coming, everyone. I don't know that I'm going to stick behind the podium, and I'm not going to stick up here for very long because I'm not the main attraction. They're assembled here. And for those that were here yesterday, how many were here and actually saw the P-51 fly? All right, good number. I'm sorry more of the community isn't here to see and hear these living legends. I'm really not here to introduce them, but just make a few comments from my perspective. I'm in the Army, and I made a comment yesterday that felt pretty flat, referencing the Army Air Corps. That the Air Force once was. There is no rivalry anymore, except maybe on the gridiron between the service academies, because each of the services must and has to work together because we're so small. But even more so, we've become so professional, a profession of arms, over the last couple decades. There is no peer competitor in the world to any of our armed services, especially when they leverage and work together. So the Air Force, this is their day, and yesterday as well. And in truth in lending, I'm a joint family. My niece went to the Air Force Academy. I've had cousins that are in the Air Force. I work with the Air Force day in and day out in Korea. I'm also in the Civil Air Patrol as an Air Force auxiliary here in Santa Rosa. So I do have an Air Force flight suit. So I'm an undercover Air Force guy, too. So what I really want to talk about, if you don't know who I am as a civilian, I'm a Superior Court judge. I work only on felony criminal trial matters. I see the absolute worst of our population and what they do, the bottom 1% every day. So I am so grateful when I get to put on my uniform, go on active duty, or come to events like this and see the top 1% of society. Our citizens who have fought, or veterans, Vietnam, thank you. And who's here from the Vietnam era? Who served in Vietnam? You did not get your just due, but every chance I get, thank you for your service. It was a time of turmoil for America. Tough battleground, and you're just now getting the recognition you deserve, so richly deserve. Our nation was founded on service by its citizens. As you know, our Constitution has created a very small standing Navy and Army, very small standing services. That's our history. Because in times of crisis, in times of need, to defend our nation, our freedom, our way of life, we call on each of you, your neighbors, your moms, your dads, your uncles, your aunts, the nation as a whole. But right now, as you know, we have gotten pretty small. Right now, only 1% of our country serves in the military. We have almost no one left in Congress. I think the last World War II vet just retired from Congress. So we're in a different era where, to paraphrase Winston Churchill, I never have so few done so much for so many. That's our military today. So I was hoping that someone young would sit in the front, but today's the 19th of April. Do you know what today is? I'm putting you on the spot. The 19th of April, 1775. My boss in Korea, the United States Forces, Korea General Scaparrotti, at events like this would always say, in today's day in Korea, this is what we did in the fight to oust the communists coming from the north. 1775, Captain John Parker, Lexington, Massachusetts. The British were marching to collect everyone's arms. They were heading to Concord to collect the cache of arms there. John Parker led the Minutemen to try to stop them. I have a picture of Concord Bridge in my office, just to remind me. This was before the Continental Congress. This was before our Constitution. That's why we have a Second Amendment. And few people realize that back then, many communities had ordinances that required citizens to have arms. Different for collective security, for personal security. That was the day and age. So our nation is called on Minutemen, called on farmers, ranchers, businessmen. As you know, our founding fathers gave up fortunes. The Second Continental Congress created the United States Army. The Army Reserves would come later. But our nation, in time of crisis, World War I, World War II, great wars, it called up our citizenry to defend our great nation, our freedoms. Some call it an experiment that's still persistent, but the fundamental precept is that each of us participates in defending the Constitution. And that's the Army's oath. That's everyone that serves takes an oath as an officer enlisted. We defend the Republic. We defend the Constitution. Average citizens called to do hard and arduous things in time of need on everyone else's behalf. So I hope you understand that's our nation's culture. And I'm a pilot, and I'll tell you, I really concentrate on avoiding bad weather, trying to take off and land, try not to hit other airplanes that are moving slower or as slow as I am. I cannot imagine doing that in a plane like the P-51 in combat, having people shoot at you, having people on the ground shoot at you, having other planes trying to kill you. I just can't imagine the heroism it takes sitting alone in that cockpit. These are great men. They were average men before they were called to perform above and beyond, and they excelled and did so. So I am very honored to be here, very honored to have met some of those who are going to speak today. I just want to say a few other things about Korea, because that's where I'm last assigned, just getting over that assignment. And by the way, I put some of my cards from 8th Army, which is the Field Army, in the last remaining U.S. Army Field Army remaining in Korea. I put some business cards up there because they're going to be collectible someday, but I'm just about done, so if you want to grab them, please feel free. You know, there's no peace in Korea. The war never ended, and those that fought there know it. My daughter served there. She was in 210 Field Artillery, 2nd Infantry Division on the DMZ. They are ready to fight tonight, as we say, today. They are very dangerous up north. There's an armistice in place. The war never ended with the truce. So it's a very dangerous place. And the folks that fought there, that flew there, and if you've ever seen the terrain, you can see it from Google Earth, at least most of it. It is rough, very rugged, small, narrow, canalized valleys. Awful place to fight, whether from the air or on the ground. And our soldiers are poised to do that today. Airmen, Navy, Marine Corps, we all fight together with the United States forces in Korea. It's the most ready force there is, other than those that are in Afghanistan still fighting today. Now we are in the military subordinate to our civilian leadership, you know that. We defend the Republic. We rely on the people's trust. And I think we have it. We rely on Congress and the command authority to provide us what we need so we can defend the nation. You're subordinate to the civilian leadership, which is something that was misunderstood during the Vietnam era when they blamed those that fought the nation's war on those that actually had to risk life and limb to do it, when they were doing it on behalf of the United States government and Senate. So please don't forget that lesson. Please thank a Vietnam veteran. Please, I don't know if the color guard is within earshot, but that was outstanding. I wish I had coins with me. My aide-de-camp is in Korea. But they deserve a round of applause for it. It takes a lot of work to come up with that precision and dedication. So, are they nearby? Don't know?
Yeah, we're actually currently in the crowd.
In the crowd? Okay, see you in the crowd. So please, when you listen to these gentlemen, ask them some good hard questions too. Realize what they did in their place in history on your behalf in far reaches of this world, away from home, family and loved ones. Back in World War II, everyone had someone that served. Everyone served, whether it was collecting scrap metal, rationing fuel. Everyone participated in the war effort. That is not true today. But these gentlemen led the way and set the bar so high for those that follow, knowing that the Air Force remains the most potent Air Force in the world. There is no pure competitor. And some of that started in the industrial age with turbochargers and high-octane fuel. But it's the men in the machine that makes them work. And I'll also say, as a very young child, and I wasn't born until 56, after these guys were taking down targets in the skies, the P-51 was my first model aircraft. I had never seen a more beautiful, inherently beautiful aircraft, just sitting on the ramp and roaring overhead for those that were lucky enough to hear that engine yesterday. It's just an amazing aircraft. But it's the men that flew them that made it historic. So without further ado, I want to pass the mic and get them on stage.
Those are the words of a warrior who's been on the front lines of freedom. And we're very fortunate in this nation. We have people who are willing to serve selflessly and put it on the line day in, day out. We're very fortunate. So let's pick up the tempo a little bit. Let's have a little bit of fun here. And we have a video that is Ron Mullins here. He did make it. We had a christening this morning, an Irish christening, and we know how those go. But this is pretty sharp, and I worked with Ron on it, and it'll pick up the tempo a little bit. We've got a little bit of dead time here, but I think everybody's going to enjoy it. It has the zoom and the boom and a little bit of history of the Mustang.
Far from being a radical design innovation, was very much a homogenization of the conventional wisdom of fighter aircraft into one of the last and perhaps the greatest of mass-produced piston-engined fighters.
when you got into 51, you think to yourself, oh God, this damn year quits. I put that Merlin engine would run like an old Model A Ford. Just ran forever.
The convention in World War II fighter design was a low-wing, single-seater monoplane powered by an inline engine. The Messerschmitt, the Spitfire, the P-40, the Yak. And the plane that perhaps represents the highest refinement of this layout is the P-51 Mustang. criticism of love that they will probably still be with us into the next century. The Mustang stands alone.
Okay, my Asgard guests, or VIP guests, please step forward. I didn't hear any roars or cheers for the video. What do you guys think? Okay, I'm going to introduce our VIPs here. Brigadier General Robert F. Earthquake Titus. U.S. Air Force retired. Ernie Wakehouse, World War II, Korea, 1951. Ernie Titus in the same fighter bomber outfit, and they probably share the same scotch. Colonel Joe Peterburs, U.S. Air Force retired. World War II, Korea, and served in Vietnam. And his Mustang shot down an ME-262. So that tells you about that P-51. And then last but not least, we have Colonel Jack Prout. Colonel Prout, P-61s. And he also probably had more airtime than one of the more unique airplanes that came out at the tail end of the World War II, a hybrid, what it was, off the P-51, the F-82 twin Mustang. So what we're going to do here, we're going to share some stories here, and we're going to share that mic up there. We'll start off with some questions with the panel, and they'll share their story, and then in turn we'll go to Ernie, Colonel Petersburg, Jack Prout. So, Earthquake, please share with us your first experience, the first time you saw a Mustang. What inspired you about that airplane?
I saw it in the movie. Well, actually, I went through pilot training after World War II, and I didn't think I was going to get to fly fighters because I was told that if you're over 6 foot tall and 180 pounds, that you're going to fly bombers. So when I finished basic pilot training, I was sent out to Barksdale Air Force Base in Shreveport, Louisiana, to check out in the B-25, which I did. I was the first guy in my class to check it out. And, I had a lot of time on my hands from then on, waiting for finishing the flying hours required. And I got a lot of instrument training, which was a magnificent blessing, and saved my life a few times after the fact. But my first assignment out of pilot training was to Tyndall Air Force Base in Panama City, Florida. And when I reported into base operations to the major, where I was told to go, he asked me what I wanted to fly, and I pointed out the window at a Mustang. I want to fly that, and he said, get a chute. And went out and flew a T6 first. He wanted to see whether or not I had any capacities for handling something like a Mustang. And that worked out all right. And that very day, I checked out the Mustang, and from that point on, I spent my life flying fighters. To me, the Mustang was a magnificent machine. I'll tell you, I don't know, it's in my blood, I suppose, but I get choked up just watching these movies. I was walking through Falcon Stadium for an Air Force football game some years back, and my wife and I were coming down the steps to a lower tier level where our seats were, and suddenly a couple of Mustangs came through the stadium. And I went into a state of shock, grabbed my throat. I mean, I was overcome with emotion. My wife looked me back and says, okay, honey. But I mean, that's what a Mustang means to me. A friend of mine, Joe Thibodeau, who raises at Reno, owns a Mustang in Denver. He's a tax attorney in Denver. And he asked me one time what was my favorite airplane. And I told him the Mustang. He said, being a Mustang owner, he was quite interested in my response. And he said, why? I said, well, once you realize it's the best, finest airplane that God ever made, what else is there to say? So that's my feeling and involvement. It's the greatest fighter airplane I ever had the privilege to fly.
Ernie Wakehouse.
Well, I flew the Mustang a total of 650 hours. And 200 of it was in combat. And the rest of it was during World War II, ferrying Mustangs, and finally the war was over, and I decided to go home. And I joined the 123rd Fighter Squadron in Portland, Oregon, who had Mustangs. And I could go out and get a Mustang and fly any place that I wanted to and got paid for it. That was a pretty good deal. And a nice airplane. And then guess what? The Korean War broke out. So we ferried some Mustangs to Moffett Field, Naval Base, and when are we ferrying these Mustangs to the Naval Base for? I found out later that they put them on the aircraft boxers, sent them to Korea, and picked 9 of us pilots out from the National Guard and sent us over there to fly 100 missions or 1 year and go home. And so I flew 100 missions in 3 months. It was a great airplane, a great experience. I led General Titus on his first combat mission, and he stuck with me, I think, with about 40 or 50 missions, and I said, well, I think I'll go home. He said, hey, you better stay here with me. But I decided to go home and checked out in jets and then got out of the Air Force.
Louder.
So that's sort of my, that's my story of the Mustang.
Yeah, I'm Joe Peterbers. After graduation from pilot school, pilot training, I was assigned to an RTU flying P-40s at Page Field, Fort Myers, Florida. Florida at the time had about 8 or 10 RTUs, and most of them had 51s. I think there were only 2 P-40 RTUs. But we had a great time mixing it up with the Mustang. We were always up there, and there were very, very few regulations. So we had almost the whole sky of Florida to practice our dogfighting skills. Anyway, I was assigned after really about 240 hours at the P-40 and the A-24. I was transferred to England, arrived in England at 19 years old with 240 hours of P-40, and I was ready to go to the war. And I was assigned to the 55th Squadron of the 20th Fighter Group. And the 20th Fighter Group had P-38s, and they were converting to P-51s at the time I arrived. And there were 6 of us that arrived together, all from the same RTU. And we all had P-40 time, so the P-51 was no sweat in checking out and in. And it was simple. We got about 10, 15 hours, and I flew my checkout, and the 51 was in the B. It had a Spitfire canopy on it. I checked out in the B, and then I got some time in the C, and then I flew my first few missions in the C, and then got a D that I named after my sweetheart, my fiancée, Josephine. So it was emblazoned across my academy. I flew some, the mission of 51, our mission was escort and interdiction. And they were long missions, averaged about 6.5 hours per mission, and my longest mission was 7 hours and 20 minutes. And I flew 49 memorable missions, and the 49th of which was my most exciting and most memorable. Later in Korea, I was assigned to the 18th Fighter Bomber Group and flew some 76 missions with that, doing an entirely different job. And I'll get into that maybe later.
Colonel Jack Prout. Something unique here that I talked about earlier. He was in the tail end of World War II, and then he had the opportunity to be a part of that F-82 program. And they weren't around long. It was only something like 444 F-82s built, but also the F-82 had the first kill in the air war in Korea. So Colonel Prout, tell us about your Mustang journey there and how you got involved in that program.
Well, I'm here under false colors. I didn't fly the Mustang, the B-51. I flew the F-82, the P-82, and the F-82F. It was a twin Mustang. It was built by North American, and it was authorized early in World War II, but it didn't get around to being built until the end. And North American took the H model of the P-51. They cut the wings off, built a new center section. And it was to be the escort fighter for the B-29s that were going to bomb Japan into submission. Well, the F-82 had some peculiarities. It had 8 spark plugs by the gross. I didn't know at the time, but after every mission, every spark plug came out and was cleaned through 100 octane gas, and new ones were put back in. I flew the 82 here. I checked out at Hamilton Air Force Base. I had just come back from Japan, the Itazuki, and had been flying the P-61 there. Hamilton Air Force Base had the 325th Fighter Squadron, or group, and the 318th Fighter Squadron. I was assigned 318s. And we stood alert on the beaches of California, both north and south, in the P-61. We were down at Clemente with the 61, and it was so damn foggy we couldn't get off the ground. We didn't have a recovery, and next door was the strip that one of the senior moments, please.
We have them all the time too, everybody else.
At 91, you need a couple of these once in a while. But the owner of the newspaper had a strip, and he had a letdown procedure for the C-47s or DC-3s that would bring his newspaper to him every morning. My boss, Ed Carey, said, "What the hell, we've got a recovery system there. Why don't you go talk to the man and see if we can't use the landing strip?" And Hearst agreed. He said, "We'll run a telephone line out from the hangar, and you can stand your alert on the strip." And this was our first flying off of a Caddo strip with a P-61 in Northern California. About that time, it was the end of 48, and lo and behold, the 318th was authorized to receive the first F-82s. Great thing about the F-82 was that it was counter-rotating props. and it counter-rotated opposite of the P-38. Most pilots flying the P-38 felt it was a death wish if they lost an engine on takeoff. They didn't have enough right foot to keep the damn thing straight ahead or down the runway. With the F-82 rotated inward, there was no torque. You could lose an engine in the F-82 and fly around like I did when I checked out for a half hour doing rolls and loops and getting ready to come in. Came in on the final and did the gump check. Good God, and flipped the damn fuel system on for the right engine. You never feathered your own engine, you always feathered the other guy's engine. But I'd flown around for about 30 minutes on a single engine, completely unaware of it. Since this was the end of '48, I had just returned from flying in Korea and the outfit at Izuki. And I wasn't eligible to go back overseas. But my RO was new and he went to Korea, and he was the first casualty in the Korean War flying the F-82 in the right seat. Everybody asks about how you feel flying from the left cockpit of a twin-engine fighter, and hell, you might as well be sitting right behind the center of it. There is no differentiation. You can fly it. I went to McCord Air Force Base with the 318th, the 325th Fighter Group was at McCord, 317th was over at Moses Hole, and the 319th came up from Panama and joined them with the black-nosed F-82s at Moses Hole. I took the opportunity to fly the 82 to Alaska. I wanted to see that part of the world, and we flew pilot discretion wherever we wanted. On a Friday afternoon or Friday morning, we'd usually get together and decide who was going to lead, and we'd fly down to Tyndall to have happy hour because there was an old black man that had a barrel of oysters, and he shucked the finest oysters that you could probably have with beer. But I flew the 82 north to Alaska, up to, another senior moment.
Elmendorf?
North of Fairbanks at Land Air Force Base, and it's now Wainwright Army Base. But coming back, I was down over the island just off of the big island just before you get into McCord or into Seattle Bay, and I noticed I had a rough engine, and the oil pressure was on the right engine, so that's the one I feathered, and the one that was rough was the one I was sitting behind. I let on down into McCord or into Seattle and asked air traffic control to put me into McCord direct, and said I had a rough engine. They said, "Do you want to declare an emergency?" I told them, "No, I've got another engine there that I can start up." Some smart ass airline pilot flying gave me a bad time, but flew on into McCord, let down. I'd never had made a single engine landing in the F-82. Didn't intend to. Cranked up the right engine and made the landing, and the bird went into the hangar and became a hangar queen. That never did come out. But that's my story of the twin engine F-82.
Thank you, Harold. That was probably the ultimate design of the Mustang. Now, the last Mustang, the hybrid, was the F-82, but the H model was the last. H model never got to Korea. H model ended up being in the active duty Air Force, and then it was subjugated to Air Guard units. But that F-82 was a very unique airplane for its very clear, specific imaging. We expected that Operation Coronet and Operation Olympic World War II was going to go on for another couple of years. And if we would have got to the Imperial Japan, the home islands, and I can assure you, I've been there, it would have been a bloodbath the world had never seen. The Emperor was a god to those people. And when he made an edict, you will meet the American troops on the beach, they would have. And that airplane was designed to fly those long missions. They were called VLR. Now, there was an outfit out of Iwo Jima, 7th Air Force, and they flew those VLR missions. Those are 8+ hour missions and longer. But the F-82 was designed to augment that mission. You had 2 pilots. So that was the whole story there, and that's the correlation to Colonel Kraut's story with the B-51, which you just saw on the video. So now we'll focus back on to the 3 Mustang pilots, and we'll start with General Titus on, let's say, your most dangerous mission you survived and wondered how you made it out. And we'll work down with Ernie and then Colonel Beavers.
Well, I had more than one of them. You get involved in some things where you say, boy, I'll never try that again. Actually, I was flying with a guy named Bob Herman, who, you remember, he had flown Mustangs in the Pacific at Iwo Jima. They were escorting B-29s. But anyway, we were out on an armed wrecking mission, which we were just looking for targets of opportunity, running up and down the highway, looking to see if anybody wanted to try to move something, which we would then shoot up. In any event, we got a call and they needed some support, and there were some bunkers on this ridge, and they were firing at us, so we started shooting back, of course. But Herman went in and closed down a bunker, and I picked up one on the ridge, and he said, look, there's another one close to the top. And I looked up, and sure enough, there's another one. I see traces coming in. So I put my pipper on him and fired a burst, and suddenly I realized the top of the ridge was up there, and I pulled back on the pole and closed my eyes and waited for the crash. And nothing happened. I landed, and I noticed the crew chief was looking strangely at the intake underneath the airplane. I thought, I wonder what's going on here. And I got out. He said, there's a tree limb in there. How did you get that? So I guess I was close.
Well, I guess I can say all 100 missions were dangerous. I could come back with battle damage 30 times out of the 100. And I guess the one that I remember most is I was dive bombing the railroad tracks up in North Korea in Mig Alley. And tracers were coming up from the ground, shooting up past me. And all at once, here comes some red balls from my right, horizontally, about a foot above my engine. And they were so close that as they went by, they went bump, 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 bump. And all at once, I thought, boy, that's funny. They're going horizontal. And I looked over to the right, and here was a MiG about a couple of 100 feet off of my right wing with his speed brakes out. And he was trying to get behind me. And so I kicked the little right rudder. I still had all 1,850 rounds of my 50 caliber machine guns, bullets. And he could see that I was going to get behind him, so he sucked in his speed brakes, and he went up straight up out of sight. So I lucked out on that one.
Colonel Peterburs?
Well, it depends upon which war you're talking about. But anyway, I'll do a short one in Korea. Korea was on a napalm rocket run on troops and trenches. Of course, with the rockets we had then, you had to do straight level. I dropped the napalm and got good hits there. And came in with my rocket, popped off 3. Fourth one, I got a bullet through the small arms fire through the wing loop, in through the canopy, bounced off my armor plate back, and splattered. My face was reached up, it was full of blood. I made it back to base okay, and it wasn't nothing very serious. But anyway, my last mission in World War II, the 10th of April, 1945, and people think, well, at the end of the war, not much was going on. Well, of the 6 guys that came over, the 6 of us that arrived at King's Cliff together, it was 100% casualties. 3 of them were killed in action, and 3 of us were POWs. So in any event, on the 10th of April, the 1st Air Division was setting up 1,000 bombers with 900 fighter escort to take care of targets in Magdeburg, Brandenburg, Berlin, and Oranienburg area of Germany. I was, the 20th Fighter Group was escorting the bomber going to Oranienburg. And everything was uneventful until we got to the target. The bombers dropped their load. And just after they dropped their load, we were hit by a gaggle of MA-262s. I was flying high cover, and at about 28,000 feet. The bombers were down around 23,000 feet. I looked over to my left. I saw one bomber blow up. A 262 was behind him, blew it up. And came in and I rolled over, started after him, throttle wide open. And by the time I got down to the deck, down to the 262, the other bomber had blown. So he had blown 2 in a row in a couple of, that's probably a minute and a half or so. And I started firing. I got hits at his left wing and left engine, and he started smoking and burning, and he rolled over to the right and headed towards Berlin. Steep down, I chased him, and even with the damage to his left engine, he was able to outrun me. By the time we got down to the deck, about 3,000 feet, he disappeared into some clouds. He told me later that when he got into the clouds, he did a 90-degree turn, and shortly after that, his engine disintegrated. He had to bail out. He bailed out at about 1,000 meters. Well, I didn't chase him into the clouds, and I looked over and I saw this big airfield just loaded with aircraft. And what better to do? My wingman was right behind me, and what better to do than to strafe that? So we started strafing. Tracy, on the second pass, with the 2 passes, he got 4 in the 2 passes on the ground, and I got 3. They blew up. So we only counted ones that blew up. And Tracy on the second run, as he was coming off target, he got hit in the tail right up into the engine. And I saw that his canopy fly, and he was out. He bailed out about 200 feet, landed in the river right under a little lake right by the airfield. So I had nothing better to do, and all those aircraft were still there, so I decided to do what a fighter pilot should never do, make even more than 2 passes, or more than 1 pass. But anyway, I made 3 more passes and got at least 5 that blew up, and started a hangar on fire. And as I was coming off my fifth aircraft, it was a FW-200 Condor 4-engine. Just as I passed over, it blew up, and as I was pulling off target, I was hit in the engine. First I got a pop, and then I got another thud, and starts spilling oil on the windscreen. So I kept going. I was able to make it up to 10,000 feet. I had to decide whether to go east or west. East was closer, but I didn't want to go with the Russians, so I decided to go west. We had been briefed that the forces were, Allied forces were in Magdeburg, and that was about 90 miles away. So I started to Magdeburg, and I got to Berg, a little town near Magdeburg, and I was down to about 1,000 feet. And I thought, crap, I'm gonna have to bail out. That's just too low. So I had strapped, and just about the time I finished unstrapping, I look over to my right, and there's a FW-190 headed for me. So I turn into him, and as I'm turning into him, he fires, he misses. And I go under him, and then I check the altimeter, and I'm down to 500 feet. And I thought, oh, of course, this is happening in milliseconds. I got to bail. I've got too low to bail out. I got to belly in. And then it comes to mind that I'm unstrapped. I'll kill myself after trying to belly it in. So last thing I know, I go over to the left side of the cockpit because this right side is burning. And I go out there. On the left side, I hit the tail with my right knee, pull a ripcord, I shoot open once. My chute opens and I hit the ground. I'm immediately surrounded by Germans, civilians, who are ready to string me up. And I looked up, the sergeant comes tearing up on a motorcycle and takes out his Luger, pops off a couple pops, and puts the civilians away, and we tear off to the air base, which was close by. And I'm imprisoned there for 2 days, and then go on a trip to, of course, this is a suburb of Magdeburg, and there's fighting in Magdeburg. So I go to, they take me to Stalag 11, which is a British prison camp that they had already evacuated. And then there was about 100 Tommies left, and we went on a march. So next 7 days, I'm on a march back to Berlin, where we started. So I get to Luckenwalde, Stalag 3, which had mostly Russian prisoners. And I'm there, and lo and behold, there's Tracy. And there were only about 5 of us, 5 Americans there, who were all the ones that were shot down on the 10th of April. And so after about a week there, we escaped. Of course, escaped in quotation marks because the security was very light. And we had a sergeant, tech sergeant, with us that could speak fluent Russian. So we take off, we get about 5-10 miles down the road, and Russian tank, we run into a Russian tank unit. They give us a rifle and say, hop on, we're going to Wittenberg. So I fight with the Russians from Berlin to Wittenberg on the Elbe, and then am reunited with the U.S. troops, and then eventually back to repatriation. Well, that was it. And but later on, in a long, long story, it comes to pass that we find, number one, I didn't know, I never made a claim for 262, and I didn't know he had bailed out. The Germans and the Norwegians were searching all these years for the guy that shot him out. Well, they finally found it, and it was 100% the circumstances and so on. Anyway, it was Walter Schuck, and he had 206 aerial victories. He had 198 in the ME-109, and he had 6 in the ME-262, 4 B-17s. I found out then that he had attacked another division before I saw him, and he had destroyed 2 B-17s there. So on that mission, he destroyed 4 B-17s in a row, and I hope I got him before he got the 5th one. In any event, we became got to California here some 10 years ago, and became very close friends. Unfortunately, he just passed away. He passed away in last month on the 28th. He was 94, and he's 4 years older than me. So, and I spent I spent some 4 trips with him in Germany, and he's been over here 3 or 4 times. I think that covers.
Earthquake, I have a question for you. I can't overstate the importance, and then what you're hearing here, this is the real deal, about the P-51 Mustang and the significance that it did as an air superiority fighter during World War II. Colonel Peterberg flew in World War II against the 262. And I'll tell you a little quick sidebar here, and I'm going to move on, but I think it's very significant in the importance of the overall contribution of that fighter as air superiority weapon against Nazi Germany. My father served 2 tours. He was a B-17 crewman. He was a tail gunner. And he remembers seeing the V-2s being launched from up on the Baltic and seeing them going off on the curvature of the Europe. He remembers seeing the 163, little rocket-powered little fighter. The 262 had buzzed his squadron a few times. He never saw anybody go down, but he heard all the stories. They'd come zipping through there with 20 millimeter and 30 millimeter cannon. You hit a B-17, that's 10 guys. 10 men. So by that shoot down of that top German ace, imagine how many lives were saved. And I'm here today. My father told me, he said, you know, we were bogey bait. It wasn't for the Mustangs, we would have been history. He said the flak was terrible, but when those jets came out and the D model 190 Dora, he said it was dead. And he goes, we didn't have the Mustangs, he goes, he never would have made it. I wouldn't be here. That's the significance of what that B-51 did in Europe. So we're going to go to General Titus, and I'd like Earthquake, if you can elaborate, when you were over no man's land providing support for troops in combat, that you had to bail out, and there's quite a story here that I'll elaborate on later.
Okay, well, we're on a close support mission just in the DMZ, and I didn't know it, that I'd been hit. I first figured that out when my feet were getting hot, and I looked down at the coolant gauge, and it was pegged, and the airplane was on fire. And so I thought that was a pretty serious situation. I immediately did a staff study on it to determine what would be the best course of action. It was a short staff study. Popped the canopy, picked up my camera, which I didn't want to lose, stuffed it in the pocket of my flying suit, and nipped out nimbly over the side, or so I thought. Actually, I knew that I was to stand up and grab hold of the canopy and armor plate and hurl myself out toward the wingtip, which I attempted to do, and the tail hit my legs. And I pulled the ripcord, and the parachute opened, and I hit the ground. I thought, I mean, it was that fast. I thought that I was higher than that. They told me that later on that nobody saw me get out. Anyway, I landed in the DMZ and I assessed my situation to determine my next course of action. And I looked up and I saw some guys in pajamas headed my way, golden pajamas. And I had my 45 out. By golly, I was going to take them on. I went bang, bang, and they went, I said, well, this is serious. So I flattened myself in the terrain and rolled into a hole. No man's land had a lot of holes. And tried to assess what my next course of action might be. About that time, I heard a voice say, keep your head down and crawl over this way. And it was a Marine sector, and they'd sent out a patrol and laid down a covering fire. And I crawled, well, it wasn't very far, actually, maybe 50, 75 yards. And I came to their revetments and ended up in a bunker and thanked them. And I was right there in the main supply route, the center of the road for Korea, bringing in ammo and provisions. And I hitchhiked my way home. And I got into the tent, and they'd already divvied up all my stuff. My first question was, okay, who's got my shaving brush? But nobody had seen me bail out. So that was could have been a more exciting day, but it was interesting enough, and I didn't bother to consider that I needed to keep doing that kind of stuff.
I'd like to delve into that story a little bit more. Who's familiar with Colonel David Hackworth, Korean War veteran, Southeast Asia, Vietnam, highly decorated U.S. Army officer? Well, he has a book, and he was watching this, and General Titus, this is why we all love him. We love all these guys. They tell you the truth, and it's not about them, but they'll share their stories. Well, fact of the matter is, it was from shell hole to shell hole to shell hole, a running gun battle. And Hackworth was watching this with field glasses, and he's saying to himself, who is this guy? God, I want to help him. I want to get out there. But he couldn't. And he's watching this, and the determination to fight off in a small company of Chi-Coms with only a 45 and get back to across the line. So, that's significant. That's a warrior. And a lot of people think Air Force personnel, aren't real warriors because you're not down in the mud and blood and everything else. But let me tell you something. Those guys in Europe were in those B-17s in the bottom of that airplane full of blood and guts. And these fighter pilots who were flying back, wounded from flak, or they had to bail out and try to escape and evade. And the guys that were in Vietnam who had to punch out, going through those rice paddies, and they had to endure what happened in Hanoi. Don't ever think for 1 second the Air Warrior is not. He's got it right there. And I just wanted to kind of comment on that a little bit more. Ernie?
Well, this didn't happen in combat, but this has to do with my good friend General Titus. We were in training before we went to Korea, and we were rat racing and practicing air-to-air combat. And all at once, my engine quit. And I thought, boy, oh boy, is this really me? And my engine doesn't quit. That always happens to somebody else. So it was SOP then. You were supposed to bail out if your engine quit. So I put the seat down. That was a procedure. And there was a red handle up to the right that you pulled so the canopy would come off. Otherwise, it'd take your head off if you didn't put the seat down. So I looked at the altimeter, and the altimeter read 7,000 feet. And I thought, oh, I think I'll put my seat back up and look around. So I did. I put the seat back up, and about 6 miles off, I saw an auxiliary field with a cross of runways. And being as I had 7,000 feet, the glide ratio was 6-to-1 in a Mustang if your engine quit. And so I was over a mile high and 6 miles away, so I figured, boy, I think I can make that. So I headed over there, and I figured I'd circle that auxiliary field, get off the end of one of the runways and drop my gear and go in and make a nice landing. So I got down to about 2,000 feet, and I didn't have enough altitude to get to the next runway, so I figured I better slip it and take this runway, and I dropped the gear and I slipped it and it caught on fire. And my friend says, "Wakehouse, you better get out, you're burning." And I said, "Hey, I'm too low." So I couldn't see out ahead, and I lined up with the fence and went in and landed and was rolling out and got out, turned the switches off, got out, and run like hell because I thought I was going to blow up. And pretty soon I heard a siren. Here come a fire engine from about a mile off a little small town, and they put the fire out. And so then my friend, Bob Titus, was watching all this, and he comes down and he cracks his canopy and he drops me a note, and the note said, "I'm sorry, Ernie, I didn't know the guns were loaded." And so, of course, he was kidding, but that's all right. I think he still uses it in his speeches. And that's okay, too, because he's my buddy. And so then he was kind enough to drop another note and said, "They'll come pick you up in the T6. So that's my story about landing on a single engine failure of the engine. And so that's my story about I should have bailed out, but I didn't.
Well, how special is that? You got two men here today that they served in Korea, the same outfit, served America, and they're here with you all tonight. That's pretty special. Colonel Peter Burris?
Just another war story or something?
Yes, sir. We love it. That's why we're here.
All right, I think I'll tell you about my first encounter with a German fighter. This was on the 12th of December, 1945. There were 2,000 bombers and 1,800 fighters in the air. And we were hit by some 200 Me-109s, and which were, the German tactic was to send through the 109s, hit and run. Fighters, of course, U.S. fighters would take after them, and then they had the 190s circling up there, and they would drop down and chew up the bombers. Well, that's exactly what they did, and that's exactly what's happened. And it was something from Twilight Zone. The whole air was filled with engines going, wings filled.
Louder? Yes.
Okay. The whole airspace was full of wings flipping down, fuselages, engines, and parachutes. And I was worrying more about hitting some debris in the air than I was about the German fighters. Anyway, during the encounter, I saw an FW-190 heading at me, and I turned right at him, and I could see his blinking lights, and I'm sure he could see the row of lights along the wings of the 51. And I'm sure I got a hit or two, but I passed about 50 feet under him, but unbeknownst to me, my flight leader was following the 109, but he couldn't fire at him. I mean the 190, because he couldn't fire at him because he was afraid of hitting me. And so as soon as he passed over me, he took a couple shots and blew him in the sky. And at that time, or at this time, what I'd like to do is say something about the bombers pilots. Those guys were the bravest of the brave. On every mission, they would be going along 150, 160 knots towards the target, being hit by flak you could walk on, truly, and being hit by enemy fires and onto the target. Comrades falling left and right onto the target. I never threw in my 49 missions, I never saw one bomber pilot retreat from that path. They either got to the target or they went down. And I had only, at that time, I had only hope that I could be as brave as
That says it all right there. That is what air superiority and what that airplane meant in Europe. So let's go back to earthquake here. Let's visit what it was like in Korea, where the F-51 was used, and what it was like on base, and the conditions in the airfield, because that war was changing drastically, and people were moving from base to base, and the friends and the guys and what it was like living under those conditions. Earthquake?
Do you know about the conditions of the airfield? Is that what you said? Sounding hollow to me. We lived in tents at K-46, and the runway was nothing other than a 3,000-foot strip that was bulldozed out of a stream. So it was mud and gravel. And at the far end was a Army engineer headquarters and an evacuation hospital. So we were always careful not to crash into the hospital. Magnanimous, don't you think? But in any case, we had to take off single shift because the gravel would pop up and you pick up all the gravel in the Mustang and take off. You want that. So it was kind of primitive in terms of an airfield. I was kind of amazed that they were that cavalier about providing those kinds of services for us. We had very little in the matter of equipment. In fact, I recall one day I came in and I said, well, where do we sleep? And they said, well, we got these tents over here. And it was pretty cold. We had steel cots, but no mattresses. We had oil stoves with 50-gallon drums for fuel outside. And we'd have boiling water on the stoves at night. You dip out your canteen of that, something cool it off with a shave or whatever. And then in the middle of the night, the lines would condense and freeze up. So in the morning, what had been boiling water was now frozen ice. It was really cold. I can't tell you how cold it was. There was a young lieutenant in the squadron. He was constantly complaining because all these air guard guys had been recalled to active duty by Gurney. They all had wives, and they were getting quarters allowance and extra pay. And this guy was really upset about that. He said, "We're not getting that." I said, "We don't have families. We don't need quarters allowance." "What's wrong with your quarters?" He says, "They're inadequate." Well, he got shot down and was captured and spent some time as a POW, and I didn't have any opportunity to come in contact with him again. But a few years later, I was in Columbus, Ohio, where North America was building F-86s, and I was sent over there to pick up an F-86. And I spent the night and went into town, and being a bachelor, I was looking for somebody to dance with and all that sort of stuff. We went to a nightclub, and you know, the hotels had lounges and dancing and so on. And I bumped into this guy on the dance floor, and by God, it was that lieutenant. And I said, "How are the quarters up there? Is it adequate?" "No." I said, "Did you get quarters allowance?" "No." I said, "You should write to Washington." But as I said, the quarters are pretty primitive, but when guys complain, my attitude was, "Look, Buster, if you think you got it bad here, why don't you go on up to the front lines and sleep with the troops? They're sleeping in foxholes. God bless them. My favorite mission, and we used to sing a song about it, close support is a damn fine mission because you work so close to the troops. And I always felt that way. I was on R&R one time in Tokyo with the flight commander by then, with my guys, there were half a dozen of us, and we went into a bar in Tokyo, and we're in blue suits, wearing our blue Air Force uniforms, and there were some rowdy soldiers in there, 3 or 4 of them, and they had a lot to drink, and they were a bit vociferous and out of control. But they thought they didn't like us because we were Air Force guys. And the guy came up to me and said, "What are you looking for? Some problems?" I said, "Get in the first punch because it's going to be the last punch you're going to get in tonight." He said, "What are you doing? Where are you stationed?" I said, "Korea." "Well, what do you do in Korea?" I said, "I fly airplanes." "Well, what kind of airplanes do you fly?" I said, "Mustangs." "Mustangs," he said, and he turned around, pulled up his shirt, and said, "See that burn mark? That's napalm. If it hadn't been for you guys, I would be dead." I said, "Well, God bless you. The best support, the close support is the best mission that a fighter pilot could fly. Because you're there for those guys."
God bless you, sir. Okay, we're going to have a little Q&A here. I'm going to walk the audience, and you're going to have an opportunity to ask questions on the various members of the panel. And let's try to be brief. We don't want to get these too long-winded with your questions, but we want everybody to be able to participate and interact with these men, because this is not going to happen again. Mark those words. This is the time that we need to honor these guys and ask good questions, because these events like this just don't happen anymore. What's your name, sir?
Larry Bolton.
Larry?
I have a question for the general about your last flight of the Mustang. You know, I'm old enough to remember when that took place. It was on the news. I was just wondering, was there a ceremony or anything when you got to McCollum? And
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand.
well, you were the last official flight of the Air Force Mustang. I was just wondering, when you got to McClellan, they have a bottle of champagne for you and all that, any kind of celebration?
Bottle of champagne? Why would a guy need something like that? There's Scotch whiskey on it.
Okay. Well, it was on the news at the time, and I was just wondering.
I'm sorry, I really don't understand the question because the acoustics here confound my hearing aids. Leon?
Yes.
Please relay. Don't talk in the mic. Get off the mic.
It was the question.
He was asking if there was any kind of ceremony in McClellan when we flew the last mission of the P-50.
Oh, no, unfortunately, I took that airplane up there. I flew for 2 hours and 10 minutes. I noted what I logged. I knew that they were going to probably dispose of the aircraft at McClellan. So I flew around for a while trying to figure out where I could hide it. And I couldn't come up with an idea. And in fact, from what I understand, it was actually destroyed. You could have bought one in those days for a penny. And you could sell it today for $2.5 million, probably, or more. I don't know what these guys cost today. But I mean, I understand they charge $3,500 an hour to get a flight in one. And I get to fly them for free. The best thing about Korea, as far as I was concerned, was the pay. As I recall, we got about $375 a month, and that included combat pay. That was big money in those days.
What rank were you at the time, sir?
First lieutenant.
Question here.
Yes, sir.
As an old Korean Army fellow, I rode over there on a troop ship, 3,000 of us, and there was 1,000 or so Air Force fellows there on it. And we put into Yokosuka, and the Air Force boys got off, but I'm curious how you fellows get to your duty station. You certainly don't fly there in a P-51, but did you have to get reduced to a troop ship?
No. I was allergic to ships, that's why I didn't join the Navy. But, and I grew up in a Navy town. That's another reason I didn't want to be in the Navy. But, no, we flew from Travis Air Force Base to Hickam, and then to Wake Island, and then into Tokyo. And from Tokyo, you got a goody bird over to someplace in Korea. And then you got a jeep to go to your base.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a question for Colonel Peterburs.
I actually have more of a statement. My name is Sabrina Peterburs, and Joe Peterburs is my grandpa. He's not a colonel to me, he's grandpa. I want to thank everybody here for inviting us to this commemorative flight. I have huge respect for all the gentlemen sitting up on the stage, especially my grandpa. But I have a quick question for General. How was your flight yesterday? I got to see you take off, but I did not get to see you land. And did you get any control of the aircraft? Did the pilot let you have any control at all? And was it just like riding a bike like everyone says?
They let me fly around a little bit, and frankly, it's an easy airplane to fly if you know how to do it. You know, it's an amazing thing. The Mustang was a very unforgiving airplane. I suppose everybody knows that. The torque generated in the airplane was sufficient that if you didn't get ahead of it, put your foot into the rudder pedal and keep the airplane straight. You can do what my roommate did. And I flew on his wing, and in those days we did an overhead traffic pattern. You come in over the end of the runway and lay it up on its side and just bring it around. It's about 30 seconds. You throw down the green flaps and land. Well, I was behind him, and I observed what he did. He landed, and he had a bad landing, and he poured on the coal. He poured on 61 inches of manifold pressure, and he forgot to put it in the rudder. And the airplane went around all right around the longitudinal axis of the airplane. The wings broke off, the engine broke off, the airplane was destroyed. Fortunately, it didn't burn, and he crawled out where the instrument panel had been without a scratch. But
Okay.
I can say that we lost a lot of airplanes in Korea. We lost more airplanes, I think, in the traffic pattern than we lost in combat.
Okay, we have another question here from Captain Jerry Fenton.
Well, I want to thank all of you guys for flying P-51s, but from everything I've heard from anybody that flies a P-51, it was a great, marvelous airplane. What I'd like to know from the P-51 pilots, what was it about the P-51 that you didn't like, if there was anything?
Not enough fuel.
Anyone else? Ernie, Joe?
I didn't hear the question.
What did
What
you not like?
aspect of the airplane did you not like?
Oh, I couldn't stand the P-51 in Korea. In Korea, it was the worst aircraft they could ever put from the inventory for close air support. I would have much rather had a P-47 with its 8 guns out there, or a P-38 with those compact guns in the nose. A 51 at 22 in the coolant and you're gone. And that's what we were losing aircraft with, because it was the inappropriate aircraft to use for that particular mission.
I couldn't agree more. And I often wondered about that at the time, because I recall in 1950, before the Korean War started, there was, at Kelly Field, there were rafts of P-47 sitting there. And later on, they gave them to South American countries. You guys had carried some down there. And it would have been a much better airplane for the mission in Korea. But the powers that be selected the Mustang. And we lost something like 750 Mustangs in Korea. We spent that many Mustangs. In fact, when we ran out of my squadron, we were down to 6 airplanes, and the guy that was the supply officer signed over those, well, was supposed to sign over the airplanes that he had signed for. And of the 6 or 9 airplanes that we had remaining, none of them were anything other than replacements. He wasn't signed for any of them. So obviously, we didn't realize how many we were losing, I guess. But you know, that's just part of the game. You don't pay any attention to that.
To elaborate on Colonel Peterberg's statement, I've interviewed pilots that were in Saipan, in Okinawa after the war. We had 38s out there. We had Thunderbolts, the M models. That was the last of the line, water injection. And I was told he was a witness to watching a bulldozer push them into the ocean. Well, a few short years later, Korea happens, and what do we got? Not much. We have a question here from Ed Davis.
The question I have is about the gun sight in P-51. When they first came out, they were just a standard reflex sight. And then about probably November of 1944, they started arming them with the K-14 gyro sight. And I would like to know what you felt about that. Did it help you, or did it hinder you?
Well, I can't really speak to that because I didn't use it that much. I mean, you had to encounter another aircraft and be in a dogfight to be able to combat it. So I don't think I was using my K-14 when I shot down Walter. He was a pretty big bird, and I was pretty close when I opened up. But I'm sure I've heard Bud Anderson talk, and we've talked about, and they all said it was a great improvement. The K-14 from the eyeball type of gun sight we had before.
Thank you.
There was a Petaluma resident who many of you know, Colonel Jim Moorhead. And in the early days, the dark days of World War II, they were flying B models. And they had a ring and B sight, just like a World War I fighter. So that transition, that was a great question by Ed about the capability with a computing gun sight. And that's a key point. Anyone else have any other questions? Airman?
I just got a quick question. My question's for all of you. As career military men, who in your career had the biggest impact on you? And, being a military man, enlisted war officer, takes a lot of sacrifice, and there's got to be a driving force behind that. So, if it was an individual, who and why, and if it was a mentality, what was it that made you go for the long haul?
One at a time. Earthquake, who is your mentor?
Well, my personal hero, I actually had 2. Robert E. Lee and Thomas Stonewall Jackson. And Robert E. Lee said, duty is the most sublime word in the English language. No one can do more. You should never try to do less. And that guy, that's my guy. Duty. Duty. And as I like to tell people, I'm mentoring cadets at the Air Force Academy and so on. I said, learn the cardinal virtues: prudence, justice, temperance, and fortitude. Prudence is the carrier of the virtues. Without prudence, you can do nothing. And some people misapply that word and misinterpret the meaning. Prudence doesn't mean avoiding problems or avoiding trouble. Prudence means doing the best you can in the circumstances that are provided at the time. Justice is what you owe every other person. Temperance, limit yourself in all things. Fortitude or courage is what gets you through the hard spots. I used to pray to God on every mission, not to survive, but to have the capacity to perform my job. Take me if you will, Lord, but let me do my duty.
Ernie?
Well, I have to give credit for flying with me. Like I said, I took him on his first mission, and he flew with me for his first, I think, 45 missions. And he was my wingman. And he took good care of me. And we flew line abreast. And if there was any MiGs that would come in and make a pass on us, of course, he would warn me, and he took care of me, and he did a fantastic job of flying combat with me when I was his flight leader. So my hat's off to General Bob Titus.
Amen. Joe?
Well, I guess when I went over to combat, my heroes and my mentors were those pilots that had gone through the combat and were experienced. They were our heroes. Young, like I said, I was 19 years old, and these old 22 and 23-year-olds, they had just, they had paved the way for the rise of the Air Force. Later, they were the heroes and the designers and stuff like that in the Air Force. But at the time, they were our mentors. We learned as much as we could. But overall, I think that I learned the most from my father, who fought against the Moros in the Philippines in 1906, who chased Pancho Villa along the border, Mexican border, in 1914, was a counter-espionage agent during World War I, and at 50-some-odd years old, he entered World War II and saw combat in World War II.
Colonel Kraut?
Well, I have to say that the people out of the Southwest Pacific were my heroes. General Parker, who came up through the 5th Fighter Command, was a mentor. When we came back from Japan, he brought us all back to Hamilton. And the other would be General Vincent, who was in the Pacific with the 5th Fighter Command, or with the Flying Tigers. And Vincent was the vice commander at Hamilton, and Wanaf was there. And the other would be General Prentice, or Colonel Prentice, who took over the 325th Fighter Wing at McCord. And I checked him out in the P-50 or the F-82. He and Sakikian left to come to Hamilton for a conference and were never seen again. They're out there somewhere in the Pacific. Those are them.
Okay. I can just tell you how I feel. You are my heroes. And that's why we did what we did. You're all here today. We wanted to share this with everyone. But more important, remembering what you did. Each and every one of you, what you did for America. And this little group here, God bless them all. There's others out there that couldn't make it today. But they contributed all for one sole mission, was to get you here today, get everyone together, and let Earthquake fly. And that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this. You're our heroes. God bless you. Has a book. If anyone's interested in a book, you can purchase it here. We do have some limited prints signed by General Titus, so you're welcome to step up and participate. Again, you got to remember, you can't go back next month and say, geez, I wish I would have got that book, or I would have had the guys sign some prints. This isn't going to happen again. So if you have an interest, now's the time to step up. And I want to thank you all for being here. And we're going to get ready to retire the coats.
Present Hart. Port Hart. Colors. Colors turn. Arch. Bears. Ready. 2.
Let's have a round of applause for those young people. Thank you. Okay, again, we do have books from Peterburg's, and we have these limited prints. If somebody's interested, now's your chance. You can come on up and take a look at what we have here. You can have an opportunity to talk to these men. And again, this isn't going to happen again. So if you want to shake someone's hand, now's the time to do it.